This is Jeff Abramowitz, and welcome to Looking Forward Radio. We are so glad to be here. I can't tell you that I am excited. I look forward to this show each and every week that we do it. And today we have an amazing show for you. We have some great guests. We have some wonderful people that are really excited about telling their stories about a little bit what's going on. Before we bring our first guest on, I want to talk a little bit about what's happening in Philadelphia. So I was mindful. I woke up this morning and there was some snow on the ground here in Philadelphia, and enough snow that I was grateful that I didn't have to leave my home today. I could work remotely and not have to get out and shovel. But in thinking about the snow that came today, I was also really mindful of the men and women that are out there, that are out on the streets every day, that are living in Philadelphia and that don't have a residence and don't have a place to go. So I started doing some homework, and my homework brought me to a lot of facts, which are really sad. In the United States, there are over 550,000 people that experience homelessness. And among them, about 96,000 of them are chronically homeless, meaning that they're facing repeated episodes of not having a place to live. The crisis in the United States is perpetuated by our legal system, which criminalizes some survival behaviors associated with homelessness. And it's really a shame. Those people that have traveled through the criminal justice system will attest to the fact, including myself, that homelessness is a challenge for men and women that come home from incarceration. Statistically, you are generally between 7 and 11 times more likely to be homeless if you've gone through prison. And I think that's something that we have to work on as a society. I'm often reminded of the reality of how close any person can be to being homeless when you come home from prison. And I know I bordered on that and lived in a shelter for about a year while I tried to figure that out. So I'm really glad to have this topic and bring it up today. And we have an amazing show today. We have one of our first guests is somebody that is always consistently a fan of Looking Forward and is on our show. And Lou Navarez is going to be on today. We have musical guest Saul Paul, who's going to be on. He's a Grammy Award winner. And if Saul doesn't make it on the show, we're going to be playing his music throughout the day. And I'll tell you a little about Saul. I have a great partnership and friendship with Sunday Breakfast, and Sunday Breakfast Rescue Mission is an amazing little place, and we're in Philadelphia, they're doing some great work. So Erin and Jeremy are going to be on, and Chuck is going to be on. Chuck Fernandez is going to be on. And then we have also our last guest is going to be Bill Antinore from Seeds of Hope Ministry in Camden. So we are packed full of things today. Before we get there, we're gonna go to our first guest before we take our first break and really talk about probation and parole. So I want to bring Lou Navarez on the show. So if you can pop him up, Lou, come on up for a second. Give our studio a second to bring him on. There he is. How you doing, Mr. Narvaez? All right, I think you're mute there. Let's get your voice going. Unless it's a bad case of laryngitis, that happens sometimes. But Lou is the district director of Pennsylvania Probation and Parole, and he has been a huge fan of Looking Forward and our radio show since it started. Lou, how you doing?
I'm fine. How about you and yours, Jeff?
We are all doing well. So glad to have you on. Thanks so much. We are there's so much happening in the world of probation and parole and criminal justice around the country. But today our focus is on homelessness, and who better to really talk about some of that significant challenge for people coming home than somebody that sees it every single day, because so many of the people that you work with struggle with the battle of finding a home. Why don't you tell us a little bit about how your office and your officers deal with the issue of homelessness and how they try to help the situation?
Yes, I definitely will. And first of all, once again, thank you for having me. We cannot look at homelessness in a vacuum. It is a very systemic problem. And in parole, anyone on parole has to have a home plan. And a home plan involves them having a residence they can return to. But we cannot talk about a home plan in a silo either, because part of the home plan is our attempts for family reunification. Many of the individuals that are sentenced to parole or receive parole as part of their sentence have burnt the bridges, and the family does not want them to return. And we become more or less advocates, assuring the family that we will indeed work with them to help them to comply with any household rules. That being said, the other issue that we have, a real problem, is when we deal with the housing authority. According to the mandate, I believe that the only two crimes that would prohibit someone from returning to a housing authority property would be arson or the manufacturings of methamphetamines. However, we have found in our journey that for some reason the managers of the housing authorities have imposed their own type of let's say, rules as to who can and cannot come. And many of these returning citizens had left a housing authority residence, which they tried to return to, but to no avail.
So that's a real big misconception, though, because a lot of times men and women that come home believe that they can't go into Section 8 housing at all, simply because of the fact they have a record. And that's not really true.
And absolutely not true, but it's enforced. And what happens, once again, you have to look at the totality of the picture. If I'm a family member and I'm willing to take you, I may not be willing to take you if the manager or local leadership at the housing authority gives the inference that you could violate your own lease. So those are things that are also problematic that come to our attention. And what we also find too is, like, when we do a home plan, we call them 30s. When we do them, we sit down and explain to the person that's going to be the provider the rules of having the person live there. But here's where the disconnect becomes. Sometimes the home provider is willing to take the person in, but the owner of the property is not. And then sometimes the home provider does not want the person to come back, but does not want us to tell the person that they don't want them to return. So therefore, we will just say that we denied the premise so as not to cause a problem for the home provider. So it's really about,
yeah. So what happens if I come home, I'm on probation and parole, and I lose the place that I'm living at? What alternatives or what options are there through probation and parole? What steps would you recommend for people to follow to stay clean, to make sure they stay in compliance? If they don't have a place to live, they don't have a place to live, and they might end up at Sunday breakfast or one of these other shelters.
Right.
But what are the kinds of things that you would recommend to your officers to do, or for people to do that find themselves in that situation?
Well, the first thing I would tell the parolee is to let the agent know immediately, because part of the conditions of parole is you can't change your address and without notifying the parole agent. So what we have is specialized agents. They used to be called ASPRA, now they're called CRIPA, Community Resource Agents. And what they do is they work with the various agencies within the community and try to find placement for them. What I do find interesting, the majority of people that we may put in a shelter, and I won't go into specifics, but they're opposed to going to a shelter. It makes me wonder, well, what's really going on in the shelter? They do not want to go to a shelter for whatever reason. And I'm not in any way going to belittle what's going on in the shelter, because I don't have that firsthand experience. But from what we get the feedback, parolees, no, I don't want to go to the shelter. That's the first thing out of their mouth. But we work with the person if they're going to become homeless. Out of 14,000 cases, when I checked prior to this show, we had 15 people that we were working with that were homeless.
Wow.
15. Okay?
So that's kind of remarkable when you think about it. 15 absolutely. That are documented.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, we don't really know. That's a big problem. I noticed one of our guests today is going to be talking about the homeless census that's done once a year, trying to figure out how many people are homeless. But the reality is a lot of people are not going to declare it, especially in a probation and parole setting.
Well, the problem they would have with parole, see, we're state parole and we handle special probation cases, which is only 1,400 as out of the 14,000. And what we do is we go out to your home. All my agents have vehicles, all my agents have iPads, all my agents have iPhones. They will go and make a home check. So you may get away this month and saying you don't have a home, but that's not going to last for so long. We do, even through COVID-19, we've put protocols in place where there are home visits that can be made and will be made, especially with people who have serious offenses.
Have you seen any increase in homelessness as a result of COVID-19 and some of the challenges being faced by people that are on probation and parole?
I haven't seen so much an increase in homelessness with parolees as I have with an increase of people not being able to leave the institution because of the family situation. You know, there are two sides of that. There's the side of the person that's detained is fearful of being COVID exposed, and the person that they want to come to is fearful that they already have it and fearful of accepting them. So that's a pendulum that swings both ways, you know. But that's what we deal with, and like I said, we become more or less the advocate, and that's why it's important for everyone to know that when you come to parole, whoever you live with will sign a home plan agreement letter where they're agreeing for you to follow our conditions. So, and we take them through an educational piece as to exactly what we do and how we try to help them.
Wow. So there's so much more that we don't see behind the scenes, like working with parolees and people on probation. We don't see all the details that go into some of that. But I'm curious now today, you know, we've seen a lot of what's happening with COVID-19 and, you know, tragically we lost so many people. And I'm just curious, is there any update from the DOC as far as how things are going? I was on a call today with the warden at Chester, and they seem to have things pretty well under control. I'm wondering if you're seeing that across the board.
Well, across the state, yes. Secretary Wetzel has been very proactive in handling the outbreak since its inception. And during the original outbreak of COVID-19, our numbers were exceptionally low. But as the resurgence came, they're starting to escalate, but there are protocols that have been put in place. And I know, and credit to a lot of the reentrants that are still in the institution, because they've had to limit their movement and activities so as not to advance the COVID. And we've had people in the reentry field that are now going into the SCIs, which are the state correctional institutions, working with the inmates, helping them through this process. And they're working on now the vaccines for the staff as well as the reentrants. And they're trying to get a plan together because see, the difference here that didn't happen during normal leadership times is you're sending people, meaning staff, into an area where the greatest possibilities they are affected. So now they're going to get infected as well.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's one of the biggest challenges is, you know, oftentimes you have men inside in what I call a petri dish because they're living so close together. And the only way that they're really going to get infected is by other inmates that are just coming in or by guards or staff that are inside the system that are outside bringing it inside. So we're hoping that vaccines get out to everybody. There was recently a feed, it was kind of upsetting. I saw over the weekend with a gentleman in one of the DOC facilities. I don't want to mention any names, but that was really struggling with symptoms and getting medical attention inside. And, you know, I know how hard it is in our outside getting hospital attention on, and there's a limited number of ventilators and resources. I can only imagine what it is inside, but I'm hoping that the medical care and attention is being directed to those that really need it inside.
It really is. And what they're doing also on the DOC side of the house is they're now identifying certain institutions to be the intake for everybody coming in. You just can't randomly go to an institution. You'll go to this one institution, you'll be quarantined a number of days before you're filtered into another institution in the state. You know, so they've been very proactive. And just to jump ship for a minute, because I know you have other guests, the part that I said about the homelessness being systemic, if we just focus on people being homeless and not all the other factors that brought them to this place, we'll be talking about homelessness when our great grandchildren are doing this radio show.
Mm.
We have to look at all the aspects that brought a person to be homeless.
Absolutely. And there's many of them. We know that there's so many things that go into the challenges that people face coming home and what got them started on that. But as I always said in my own story, look, you can't judge a book by its cover. And Absolutely. I tend to think that when you go out on the street and you start asking questions of what brought you here, you're going to find that there's doctors and lawyers and all different kinds of people make up our homeless population because they're challenges that they face. Lou, it's always great having you on. Thank you so much for sharing.
My pleasure.
And we wish you well. We're going to stay in touch. I know in March, we're looking forward to our show going on television as well. It's a big announcement coming out on that. So, we want to make sure we'll get you some makeup so you look good.
But that's a lot of makeup,
Jeff. We'll get you on. So we're going to take a break. But before we do, I want to introduce you to an artist that's going to be with us today named Saul Paul. So Saul Paul is a Grammy-nominated musician. He was two TEDx talks. He performed at the Kennedy Center for Performing Arts. He was featured on America's Got Talent. His laundry list of things goes on. We're featuring Saul Paul as our musical guest host today, and we're going to hear his music when we cut out in a second, but Saul's an amazing guy. He is a returning citizen, and I had the pleasure of serving as a fellow with him at Just Leadership USA. So I'm going to turn it over, and we're going to take a short break. We'll be right back. And here is Saul Paul.
Saul Paul All Stars. Y'all ready? Alright, folks. Let's go. Now put your hands in the sky, waving side to side. We ain't going nowhere, we just waving bye-bye. All of the haters, to all the haters, to all of the haters. Say I'll see you later. Let's go. Go time to be the change. Set the world on fire. The flame, rise higher, level up, do the thing. Shine brighter, be a fighter, push through the pain. Blaze a trail, lend a helping hand. Represent, take a stand. Change the game, sticking to the plan. Hold tight, shine bright, that's who I am. And I don't know though what you have been told though. All I know though is going for the gold though. Give my all, all my heart, all my soul though. Don't bend, don't break though. Now put your hands in the sky, waving side to side. We ain't going nowhere, we just waving bye-bye. All of the haters, to all the haters, to all of the haters. Say I'll see you later. Put your hands in the sky, waving side to side. We ain't going nowhere, we just waving bye-bye. All of the haters, to all the haters, to all of the haters. Say I'll see you later. I won't apologize for my fresh. If I owe the world anything, it's my best. And that's what you get when I'm just myself. So I refuse to switch or adjust myself. Hey, I got the cheat code, yeah, I got the cheat code. It's so easy, it's just to be me though. I got the cheat code, yeah, I got the cheat code. It's so easy, it's just to be me though. 1, 2 step, baby, 1, 2 step. Touchdown dance, celebrate yourself. I said 1, 2 step, baby, 1, 2 step. Touchdown dance, celebrate yourself. Now put your hands in the sky when inside.
We are back. This is Jeff Abramowitz at We Are Looking Forward Radio, and I am so grateful to be here. We have some awesome guests on today. In our picture there is Erin and Chuck Fernandez and Jeremy Montgomery. So this is Sunday Breakfast Rescue Mission, and I am so excited to have you guys on. We're going to start with you, Jeremy, the king of the ship, so we got to bring you on first. So why don't you tell us a little about Sunday Breakfast and what you guys do?
Yes, Sunday Breakfast Rescue Mission. We've been around only for about 142 years.
Is that all?
Sunday Breakfast Rescue Mission is still a living legacy of John Wanamaker, famous Philadelphian, of course, the Wanamaker store. So it was founded in 1878 with the simple concept of providing Sunday breakfast, which at that time consisted of coffee and a roll before church. And so at a church right over here on 10th Street between Vine and Race, the little church building is still there. On their second meeting that they hosted, they had 400 men show up. And so
Wow.
today we are more than just Sunday breakfast. We've stuck with the name. Today we are the city of Philadelphia's largest homeless shelter for men. So pre-COVID, because we've had to reduce our bed counts for social distancing. Pre-COVID, we provide 260 beds to homeless men here in Center City. We are located roughly at the corner of Vine and North 13th Street. In addition to that, we are also the city of Philadelphia's only provider of 3 meals a day, 365 days of the year in the entire city. So pre-COVID levels in our dining room, we were serving between 500 to 600 meals every single day.
Kind of remarkable. I'm I'm like your hugest fan for a lot of reasons, but one of the biggest reasons is because it's done with just dignity. Like you just walk into that building and you don't feel like you're homeless. You just feel like you're a person. And I love that. Even the food is so remarkable. It's so good. And you pride yourselves in that, but the whole living atmosphere, and I get chills every time I go in there because I go in and sometimes I'll see, you fist bumping or giving somebody a big bear hug just to say hello and how you doing. And your passion just is all over the place. So thank you so much. So you heard about the numbers, Jeremy, and there we got everybody on. I'm glad. So Erin and Chuck Fernandez, how are you guys?
We're well. Thank you for having us.
Very well.
So Erin is the director of homeless services, and Charles, you are, I believe you now work there as well, correct?
As a volunteer.
As a volunteer. So we'll talk to Erin first. So Erin, as somebody that's embedded in the system and just a great organization, tell us, like, what are some of the challenges that you see just facing the men and women that walk in your door?
Oh gosh. It really ebbs and flows what the needs are, but presently right now with COVID, it's just finding access to anything. A lot of these guys walk in with just fundamental needs. Even just getting their vital records is such a challenge right now because of COVID. Needing social security cards, driver's license, birth certificates, and because the places aren't personally open and physically open, we have to do everything by mail.
Wow.
The challenges that we faced recently with mail, even through the election and everything else, the whole process and system has slowed down significantly.
So you guys were on the front line of COVID. You guys were there, and you still were functioning. You were operational, and so tell me what it was like. Navigating the pandemic. You were still servicing, so you still provided meals and had to, but how were you able to adapt?
Wow, there's a lot of things that went into place. Quickly we reduced the census. We eliminated probably half the chairs in our dining room to allow for spacing and appropriate social distancing. And very early on, because there was such a strong scare to everybody, not knowing the implications of COVID, we made a promise to our guys. Jeremy and Sunday B made a promise to the guys that everybody that is here presently in this building, we are committed to keeping safe. Even if that means reducing our census so low and not bringing anybody else new in from the streets, we were absolutely committed to keeping the guys in the building safe.
Wow.
So first and foremost, it was a real challenge to get our hands on PPE. So we had to get creative, and so we were able to get masks, but we were using things like rain ponchos and such.
Duct tape. Kitchen rubber gloves.
To literally keep ourselves safe because we didn't know.
Construction goggles.
Yeah, I mean, it's no joke. It's true story. So it was just really challenging, but as the days went by and we grew to console and comfort the guys because of their own uneasiness, the anxieties started to curb a bit, and everybody started losing fears because they knew we were committed to keeping them safe.
Yeah.
And we did have our fair share of positive cases.
We sure did.
We have not had a single positive case since May the 7th. However, through the end of April up until May the 7th, we ended up having 65 positive cases.
Challenging, really challenging, but it makes a lot of sense. I mean, these are people that
actually 58. I'm sorry,
We had
58. I
cases,
just
and 8 were staff members.
so we had 8 staff members out at the same time, COVID-19 positive, out of a staff of only 20 total staff. We also served as the first quarantine site for homeless individuals for other shelters.
So tell me about that. So I'm a little curious because I was getting, we were getting some information on the streets that people were having difficult time getting in because they needed to be tested first, right?
Yeah, so that was, I mean, that testing really was implemented towards the end of May after our outbreak. But before our outbreak, and this was before the city had set up a quarantine site at two hotels, one at the Holiday Inn Express as well as the Fairfield that you probably are aware they shut down just in December. But before those sites were up and running, in other shelters, when individuals became in direct contact with somebody that was COVID-19 positive, we had a quarantine room here that they would send them to. So at one point in time, we had up to 19 individuals that we were quarantining for 14 days in a second floor dormitory of our building as early as March the 10th. So again, as a bit of a history lesson, as early as March the 10th, we had set up that room for our own quarantine capabilities. We suspected really early on that we were going to have to distribute and disperse the men throughout our building, limit our bed count down to a reasonable number. So we went from 260, because it was still winter back in early March, right, when COVID hit. We reduced from 260 down to 110, and that included even setting up quarantine and isolation rooms in our facility. And so when we were utilizing that, that's when the city shelter system began referring men to us that had direct contact. And then when the hotel sites got up and running, even as early as late April, that's when anybody got sent there for their quarantine. So when we were describing about rain ponchos and duct tape, we're describing needing to deliver meals into that isolation and quarantine room three times a day and again, at one point in time, it was up to 19 individuals that was in there.
Just crazy that, we don't think about it. And I had the privilege of, and it was a privilege of getting my hands on a few coats that Jeff's had, and we donated a few hundred jackets to you guys. And the Kima day was just starting to get cold. But I really want to turn to the star of this show, which is really Mr. Fernandez. So, Mr. Fernandez, can you tell us a little about how did you get to Sunday breakfast and what was your journey like?
Well, I thank you for having me. Journey was pretty hard for me. I was here at Sunday breakfast in 2017. I had just gotten out of the state penitentiary. It was not a good place at that point. Your needs weren't taken as they are now. You could sit in a chair all day and do nothing but sit in that chair and gather dust. What a difference it makes for me to be where I'm at this point. I never saw myself being in the position that I am today. And I'm going to explain to you real, as honest as I can. I've never been in a place that not only shows mercy and humbleness, but one of the main ingredients that they have here that a lot of rescue missions don't have is they have love, and they show it on a daily basis. They're not afraid to sit and talk to you. no matter who you are, where you came from, how long you've been on the street. I'm a strong believer that the prison system and the homeless go hand in hand for a lot of different reasons. I personally experienced it myself for 47 years. I was a very angry person. I was a very lonely person. I was a very depressed person. I had a terrible childhood. We were abused mentally, physically, and sexually. The state system took us out of my home. And as a 10-year-old kid, I didn't want to live. I tried to kill myself numerous times through the things that happened to me. I didn't love myself. If anything, I thought I was the problem. I was made to believe I was the problem. This is why Jeremy and Erin are so special, because they took the time for someone like myself to have the track record that I had and the prison life that I've been through, to open their arms and love me. And I think one of the biggest things in this world is that love matters. And if a person doesn't have love, he's not whole. He's not whole. And one of the things that I just thank God for, and I thank God for Jeremy and Erin for the way they do things here. It is an amazing place, and it just warms my heart that my own parents couldn't give me the love that I get from Jeremy and his wife, and I'm just so thankful.
Well, I think they're also blessed to have you in their lives as well. And Sunday breakfast, you're making me tear up over here. This is,
Yeah, yours is Charles.
Hey, Jeff, he's got another cool thing that I want him to share that I recently learned from him.
sure.
Recently, Erin was talking with him, and he was just like, you guys have no idea that how unique and how special this place is. And so, Erin, share that conversation, because Charlie, Chuck, still at this point in time, I like to repeat what you said, because I think it's so critical, his answer to how we as a society need to treat the homeless, and especially those that have criminal records. Even a lot of men that we serve are Megan's Law. They're registered sex offenders. They have no place to live or go to. And so that oftentimes they come under our care to provide compassion. But Charlie had a good answer where he finally kind of nailed it.
Yeah.
And it really gives a great indication of what we all can do to be able to help those that experience homelessness.
So, Jeffrey, one day, Charles and I were just talking in my office like we so often do, just getting updated and where he's at in life and where he needs help or guidance and support. And so he just was going on and on about how grateful and blessed he felt to be here with us. And I asked him the question, what makes us different than everybody else? Why do you feel like you're really succeeding here? And plain and simply, as I asked the question, he said
that one of the qualities that Sunday Breakfast has that none of the other rescue missions that I'm aware of have, I call it humanizing. Humanizing is being a human, but sharing that love and that care and that kindness. To me, you can't get no better than that. And where I'm at right now is a miracle and a blessing. And it's all because of the love and the kindness I received that I never received as a child nor as an adult.
Isn't that awesome, Jeff? I mean,
those are some great words.
Where he said, you humanize us.
Yeah. Great words, and you do. Sunday breakfast touches so many men in the course of a day, a week, a year, 365. People are going there to get nutrition and support, and we can't thank you enough for all the great work that you guys are doing, and know that it's yeoman's work. I mean, many people would go without food, and they'd go out without a bed. And I'm amazed. I know that I'm working with your organization to kind of revamp. And one of the things I said to you when I first walked in and got a tour was, we need to do something with these showers. And lo and behold, within I just found out they're redoing all the showers that are there, and they're in the men's. I mean, that's really what it takes. Making people feel comfortable in a place that they don't necessarily want to be, but they need to be until they can get their feet going. We're going to take a short break. This is looking forward. This is what we're all about. And this is a great discussion. Sunday Breakfast Rescue Mission. Just one quick, Jeremy, where can we find you at?
www.sundaybreakfast.org. We do not get government funding. We are 100% supported by private individuals and foundations.
There you go. So you know where you got to go if you need to make donations somewhere. Sunday breakfast. We're going to take a quick break, and we're going to be back with our next guest. We don't want you guys to go anywhere because we're going to come back at the very end of the show and talk to you for a little bit more and wrap up. But we want to break to Saul Paul again, and Saul Paul just is incredible. The Saul Paul Foundation was started to help put his money where his mouth is as far as creating racial and social equity and equitable justice. So I'm a big fan. His music is targeted for everyone. He recently was on the cover of New York Times last week, and I was so impressed. But Saul Paul, check him out. We're going to take a break. This is Looking Forward, and we'll be right back.
It's about to be lit. 3, 4, time to represent. 5, 6, and shine right now. 7, 8, it's about to go down. 9, 10, me and my friends. All of my fam, yeah, all of them. 11, 12, hey, that's my jam. About to have a party, hey, hop up in the van, cause riding out, yeah, we riding out. Hey, it's about to go down. Riding out, yeah, we riding out. Hey, so we can shine right now.
Now, it's about to go down. Now, it's about to go down.
Shine bright, keep your mind right, you can shine right. Keep your mind right, you be tight right. Keep your mind right, then you grind right. Now. Shine right now. Crunker than your side. My side crunker than your side. My side crunker than your side. My side crunker than your side. Hey, teamwork make the dream work. We can team up and make the scenes burst. Get it? I'm saying we could do it big, make it bigger than it was, do it bigger than it is. Yeah, you and I, T-Y. Unity, that would be so fly. Yeah, that could be you and I. No limits, let's bomb beyond the sky. I'm talking about big faith. I'm talking big. I'ma need space. Yeah, I might build a house on Mars. Parking space.
We're back. You're listening to Looking Forward Radio, and we have our next guest right up on the screen. We don't waste any time because when there's rock stars in the house, we got to get right to them. So this is one, and one of my favorite new friends, Bill Antinore, is Executive Director of Seeds of Hope Ministries in Camden, New Jersey. So Seeds of Hope, through 3 sub-ministries, reaches out to and alongside men released from prison, and they do so much more. I can't even, Bill's going to tell you about all the great work they're doing, but I'm really excited. Bill's married to Brenda, and I had a chance to go to their home in Camden to recently see an amazing little place that's right in the heart of Camden, where all this great work is being done. They have 6 children and 10 grandchildren, and I know they got a dog because I saw a dog as well, and 2 more on the way. Bill, thank you for joining us. How are you?
Good. Thanks, Jeff. Thank you for having me. Really appreciate it.
So I have so many. I've only known you a short time, and we just really recently connected within the last 6 months or so. But I wonder if you could tell us, how did Seeds of Hope get started, and a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, I like to say I got involved in ministry in a rather unconventional way, sort of similar to the way that you got involved with ex-offenders from your journey. I came out of federal prison in 1999, and I was looking for an entity that helped guys after they came out of prison. Of course, there in '99 there really weren't anything. There wasn't really anything around. I did get placed into contact with an entity called South Jersey Aftercare. These were guys who were doing reentry before reentry was a word that was used in connection with ex-offenders. It was only when like rocket ships were coming back into orbit. That's what we used to call reentry, 30 years ago or 25 years ago. But those guys were a great help to me once I was released. And they were an older group that used to do Bible studies and Christian seminars in prisons. And they realized, they came to the conclusion very early on that, before everybody else, I should say, that prison ministry on the outside is probably more important than going in and doing the Bible studies and helping guys grow in their faith with the Lord and so forth. And they realized that men really needed help. They dealt primarily with men. Men really needed help when they hit the gate, as opposed to just going in and doing the studies for an hour and a half a week or something like that. So they were pretty old. So after about 3 years, they were helping me for a little bit, and we started helping other guys after they came out. And I was the young guy on the block back then. And they asked me to take over, completely volunteer organization at that point. We were just helping, everybody had like a regular job, and then we would just help men, weekends, evenings, and anytime we could find.
Just incredible stuff. So first of all, the first thing that touches me is that you and I walked very similar paths. Very similar paths. We both were lawyers.
Yes.
We both practiced, and we both fell from grace and had pretty far falls. Landed in federal prison and came home and decided to dedicate our lives to helping men and women that are trying to get their lives back together. So I got a chance to really see Seeds of Hope a little bit in action. And when I went to your home in Camden, and one of the things that struck me was when you needed to start the meeting by taking me to your basement. And I was like, seriously, the guy's he's taking me down to his basement. And we walked down to the basement, and down in your basement, it was just packed, organized. And it was nice. I actually snapped some pictures of it that I saved. But those, they're all supplies for men and women. Tell us a little about what that's for and how that all started.
Yeah, well, like you mentioned early on, there are 3 parts to the ministry. So a homeless outreach, and we're pretty much on the street, although we do a breakfast, obviously nothing like the Sunday breakfast mission. We do a breakfast every Saturday. We get a couple of hundred people to it. Not during COVID. We've been doing it on the street during COVID, but in normal times, we get about 220 people to breakfast. So, we want to meet their needs. I was really, I hate to jump here, but I was really struck by what Chuck said in terms of the way that he feels the love from the people at the Sunday breakfast mission, and he can feel that they really care and identify with him as a person as opposed to just another person. We try very hard to do that over here as well, because love is at the center of everything. Non-judgmental, unconditional love strikes a chord in everyone's heart, no matter what their background is, no matter what they've done, where they came from, or who they are. And it was just great to hear that. I've never visited the Sunday breakfast mission, but I'd like to catch up with Jeremy and Erin and Chuck sometime. And we're probably 12 minutes apart by the Ben Franklin Bridge.
Really
Not even that. But so the 3 aspects of the ministry. One is to the ladies who are on the street here in Camden who have got caught in the web of addiction and turned to prostitution. And my wife leads that piece. And My Father's Hands is the outreach ministry to the homeless, and South Jersey Aftercare is for the men. But all 3 of those ministries, and a way to show that you love people is by meeting their physical needs and their practical needs. as well as, talking to them and sitting down with them and getting to know them and find out what their ultimate needs are. For us and probably at the Sunday Breakfast Mission as well, we want to meet those practical and physical needs first, but then we also want to talk about what a life with the Lord is as well. So that's really what we're about.
So, Bill, you do have houses in Camden that you allow. Is it transitional housing, or how exactly does that work?
Yeah, we call it transitional, Christ-centered transitional housing. We have right now, when we've had it'll be 15 years in April. We have 4 houses, hold 15 guys, but it's Christ-centered transitional housing for men coming out of prison. So if a guy is, we have a covenant that they have to sign. So if a man is willing to abide by the covenant, which requires some church attendance, Bible studies, regular meetings that they have to have with me and others, just to help them in their walk and in their growth with the Lord. We have applications that we send out to the various prisons here in New Jersey, and then sometimes we get inquiries from other states as well as the name. We don't advertise, as nobody really advertises. It's usually word of mouth. Somebody has had a good experience here, and then the word gets out.
Bill, when we met, you were one after the other. You were just had so many stories to tell me about men that you had worked with over the years. Is there anybody that sticks out in your mind that you say, man, if we weren't here, where would they have been? And I was glad that I could catch him. And there's one person, and maybe you could tell the story. I don't remember all the details, but I remember somebody that actually had come to you before and did not make it, and went back inside and then came back again. And you were like, I got to stick with this. I got to give this guy a chance. And you don't have to necessarily talk about that one. That sticks out in my mind. But I was wondering if you can share a little bit about maybe some success stories that you had.
Yeah, I think I remember the guy you were talking about. And people that don't travel in these circles usually would say, once a guy has messed up in one form or another, you don't give him another chance. But the Lord has put it on my heart to continue to give chances to anyone who wants one, given the fact that he has given me so many chances, given the numerous mistakes and bad decisions I've made in my life. I'm trying to demonstrate that same quality to other people. And lots of people think you're nuts. But back to the thing we talked about at the beginning, that's a way of showing love. That's a way of showing non-judgment, and a way of showing just that you want to give a second or third chance to individuals, because none of us live a poor decision-free life, or I would call a sin-free life. And we need to reach out to guys that way. So we've had some great success stories, guys that have gone through college while they were with us and now have great jobs. We have one guy, 2 guys that have, maybe 3, who have gotten married to ladies they met at church and now are living great lives. And I was just going to think about one other thing. I'd have to come back to it. I'm getting older.
We'll get you back on that too. One of the things that I'm really mindful of when I think of people that are homeless and coming home from incarceration is really how invisible they are. We're used to walking past people on the street, especially, during the summer times. We walk by them and, they may be sleeping outside. But one of my missions and one of the things I'm really passionate about is I call making the invisible visible, getting people to see and to talk and have these discussions, and recognize that there's a humanity to this, and that sometimes we need to ask those hard questions of how can we help? How can we be supportive? And when it comes to men and women in the incarceration system or justice systems and finding support, Seeds of Hope is just like Sunday Breakfast. It's just there. They are just there to help and work their magic. And a lot of times it's not just about second chances, about third, fourth, fifth, sixth chances, whatever you need to get back on your feet and get it together. I was really impressed also by the work that your wife's doing. And I know she's doing some amazing stuff in Camden as well, working with women. And I was wondering, is that part of the ministry or is that a separate division?
Yeah, that part of the ministry, it's one of the 3 sub-ministries of Seeds of Hope. And that's called, and we love the name, that's called She Has a Name. Because just as you were saying, visible and invisible, you would drive down Broadway, which is our main drag here in Camden, and you would see the ladies on the corner, and you know what's going on. but you don't really even give it a thought. You don't think they have a name. You just think they're out there working because they want to get the next bag of whatever. And that part is true, but each one of them has a name. Each one of them is a sister, a daughter, a mother, an aunt. Yeah, it's unbelievable. So once you start to see people, especially the ladies, but people in general, through that lens, it changes the way that you talk and talk about them, talk to them, engage with them. And it's been a process for me. We tried to, like when Brenda, my wife, and I were on the street with the ladies, we started with a case of cold water back 16 years ago, just meeting girls on the street and giving them water. My wife would do it. I was just the driver. But, when you saw how receptive they were to someone who cared about them, you knew that that was the key to making that relationship or that connection with them. And then, hearts open, you start to share, and it's just been amazing.
Wow, just great stuff and great work you're doing. So thank you so much for being on. We're going to take a short break and we're going to play a little bit more of Saul Paul. But when we come back, we're going to close out the show with everybody coming on, because I have one question for all of my guests today that I'd like to get you to answer before we leave. So we're going to take a break. You're listening to Looking Forward. This is Philly Cam, WPPM 106.5 FM, and we'll be right back.
All stars. Y'all ready? Alright, folks. Let's go. Now put your hands in the sky, waving side to side. We ain't going nowhere, we just waving bye-bye. All of the haters, to all the haters, to all of the haters. Say I'll see you later. Let's go. Go time to be the change. Set the world on fire. The flame, rise higher, level up, do the thing. Shine brighter, be a fighter, push through the pain. Blaze a trail, lend a helping hand. Represent, take a stand. Change the game, sticking to the plan. Hold tight, shine bright, that's who I am. And I don't know though what you have been told though. All I know though is going for the gold though. Give my all, all my heart, all my soul though. Don't bend, don't break though. Now put your hands in the sky, waving side to side. We ain't going nowhere, we just waving bye-bye. All of the haters, to all the haters, to all of the haters. Say I'll see you later. Put your hands in the sky, waving side to side. We ain't going nowhere, we just waving bye-bye. All of the haters, to all the haters, to all of the haters. Say I'll see you later. I won't apologize for my fresh. If I owe the world anything, it's my best. And that's what you get when I'm just myself. So I refuse to switch or adjust myself. Hey, I got the cheat code, yeah, I got the cheat code. It's so easy, it's just to be me though. I got the cheat code, yeah, I got the cheat code. It's so easy, it's just to be me though. 1, 2 step, baby, 1, 2 step. Touchdown dance, celebrate yourself. I said 1, 2 step, baby, 1, 2 step. Touchdown dance, celebrate yourself. I put your hands in the sky when inside.
This is Looking Forward Radio, and what a great show. What a great show. I want to invite all our guests up on the screen and bring everybody back as we got a few minutes left, and I want to ask everybody a question. So back in the studio, if we can put everybody back on, see if we can get everybody in the shot. Maybe that might work. There we go. We're getting there. If you want to take me out, that's fine too. You don't need me. There we go. We got everybody. Hi, guys. So I'm so glad. Thank you all for being on. First of all, Tuck, amazing story. Bill, great work you're doing. And Sunday Breakfast, I'm your hugest fan, Jeremy and Erin. And I love you guys and the work you're doing. But I got a question for you. One of the things that I often want to ask people in your position is if there was something that you wanted the public to know. If there's just one thing you wanted them to know and understand about the work that you do, what would that be? What's that message? And I'll open the floor. You guys can dive in. Whoever wants to go first.
I'll jump in right away just to say everybody has a story, and everybody's story is very unique. And it's the old cliche, homelessness can happen to any one of us. We're all just a crisis away of finding ourselves in the same situation
Wow.
I would add to that. There's a book that's written called "When Helping Hurts," and so oftentimes a big question that we get is, well, when I come across that person that's homeless on the street corner at the traffic light, what should I do? And our general advice, and this is not a popular response, but our general advice is, whatever you do, don't provide handouts. And the reason is because so many of them won't choose our shelter and our services and our ministry because of all the handouts that they get standing at that traffic light. And so in many respects, it's recognizing when helping hurts. And it hurts and can undermine our ability, as we are open 365 days of the year, even during snowstorms in Philadelphia and holidays. And Erin can attest to it, that oftentimes we even say one of our biggest competitors is the streets itself. And so everybody in Philadelphia recalls that this past summer, there was even a big encampment over on the Benjamin Franklin Parkway. That encampment was active at the same time when our shelter was about half full.
Wow.
And so that was a big competitor, as in we had so many men that were in our shelter this past summer, and while that encampment was active, actually threatened to leave our shelter to go to that encampment because they said, hey, listen, I want to be the first in line, and if that's what it takes, I want to go out to that encampment where I can get my free food, I can get clothing, and if those people out in those tents are going to get first in line for permanent housing, I don't want to be sitting here and be the stupid idiot, right? Well, I just said words I probably shouldn't, but so oftentimes, again, the charitable acts of the public thinking that they're helping somebody oftentimes can undermine the professionals like us and the providers like us in the work.
Yeah, I think one of the best things that comes out of that, Jeremy, is maybe support organizations like yours that are trying to do the right thing and do the good work. And whether it's through contributions or whether it's through, like what I do is kind of, if I have jackets, I'm dropping them off, or socks, I'm dropping them off, or whatever that is. And that really can help support your organizations to build and be stronger.
Just to add to that, and the other piece of advice we give is then to learn about organizations like ours and as well as Bill's, and still greet that person with dignity and say, hey, listen, I'm not going to give you anything today, but I know where I can take you. I know people who can really help. And sometimes those offers will be declined, but it still gives the dignity, the respect, and the humanity that we talked about earlier, without necessarily handing over $1 or some type of anything like that.
Good stuff. Bill, what do you got?
The thing that came to mind when you guys were talking, and don't ask me how this popped into my mind, I'm sure the Lord brought it there, and that is never give up on an individual.
Yeah.
We have sent one lady away to 7 rehabs over the last 15 years. And she has now been clean and working at a bakery in Nashville, Tennessee. Wow. They're promoting her from one thing to another. But Jeremy, and I'm sure Erin and even Chuck would say, a lot of people give up after the first try. Well, we gave you 2 tries, so to hell with you now. But that the Lord never gives up on us. I just keep going back there. So we never give up on anyone else. And you never know when that turning point is going to occur. And so for that lady down there, her life is completely different now as a result of never giving up.
Good stuff. Good stuff. So I got to go. We're going to end with words from our Rockstar Wit guest today, Chuck. You got something you want to say to the public? What would that be?
Well, I gave it some thought, and I really believe that what's been said here, we have to look at it. People make mistakes in life. We all make mistakes. Our society is not a real forgiving type of place sometimes, and neither is the justice system. But for me, I'd like to see more help with the homelessness. And as I said, that homelessness and prison go together. So if we could try to understand people, and just because someone makes a mistake and they have a record, so many people use that against you the rest of your life. So you can't get a job. You can't do a lot of things in society. All I ask for is that people think of the homeless and how we can help it and make it a better place.
There you go. Great words. Great words. So I want to thank all of our great guests, Bill Antinore from Seeds of Hope, Jeremy and Erin from Sunday Breakfast Rescue Mission, and our super rock star guest today, Chuck Fernandez. Before we close out, I just want to remind everybody that Looking Forward Philadelphia, a reentry program by Jev's Human Services, is active. And if you're looking for some support and get back into a career pathway, just reach out, Google Looking Forward Philadelphia. We're there. You can also send a message to lookingforward@jevs.org. And also, we partner with Phil Abundance, and Phil Abundance has their virtual open house for a culinary program that's coming up. So make sure you reach out to Phil Abundance as well. It's been great. I want a special thanks out to Saul Paul again and Lou Narvaez for leading off our show. This is Looking Forward, and we'll see you in a few weeks. Take care.
Saw Paul All Stars. Y'all ready? Alright, folks. Let's go. Now put your hands in the sky, waving side to side. We ain't going nowhere, we just waving bye-bye. All of the haters, to all the haters, to all of the haters. Like, I'll see you later. Let's go. Go time to be the change. Set the world on fire, be the flame. Rise higher, level up, do the thing. Shine brighter, be a fighter, push through the pain. Blaze a trail, lend a helping hand. Represent, take a stand. Change the game, sticking to the plan. Hold tight, shine bright, that's who I am. And I don't know though what you have been told though. All I know though is going for the gold though. Give my all, all my heart, all my soul though. Don't bend, don't break though. Now put your hands in the sky, waving side to side. We ain't going nowhere, we just waving bye-bye. All of the haters, to all the haters, to all of the haters. Say I'll see you later. Put your hands in the sky, waving side to side. We ain't going nowhere, we just waving bye-bye. All of the haters, to all the haters, to all of the haters. Say I'll see you later. I won't apologize for my fresh. If I owe the world anything, it's my best. And that's what you get when I'm just myself. So I refuse to switch or adjust myself. Hey, I got the cheat code, yeah, I got the cheat code. It's so easy, it's just to be me though. I got the cheat code, yeah, I got the cheat code. It's so easy, it's just to be me though. 1, 2 step, baby, 1, 2 step. Touchdown dance, celebrate yourself. I said 1, 2 step, baby, 1, 2 step. Touchdown dance, celebrate yourself. Now put your hands in the sky inside.
Okay, thank you guys. Thank you in the studio. There you go. So, Charles, you there? Thank you so much.